this video, I'm going to introduce you to the Vue Framework. So what is actually a Vue Framework? On the official Vue website, there is a definition that Vue is progressive JavaScript framework for building user interfaces, and the core library is focused on the Vue layer only. Well, this sounds a bit complicated, so let's analyze this. JavaScript framework means that you will use a JavaScript programming language to implement your application logic. A progressive JavaScript framework means that if you have an existing website, and if you want to add some functionality to that website, then you can implement a Vue application and inject it in your existing website. I will dedicate a bit more time to this in the next video. And the core library is focused on the Vue layer only. Well, this means that Vue's core library will just help you to render and dynamically re-render your views. But if you want to perform some other tasks like communicating with the API, state management, routing, and so on, you have to use some other libraries. As I said, there are some other libraries you have to use. Here I will just mention a few of those. Vue Router, Vuex, Vue Loader, Vue Test Utils, Vue CLI, Web Dev Tools, and so on and so on. And all these libraries together are forming something which is called a Vue Ecosystem. So Vue ecosystems are just other libraries together with the Vue's core library. And using Vue ecosystem, you can build something which is called single page applications. And the single page application is just a web application. That means it's running in your web browser and it will not re-render the complete page once user starts interacting with it. It will just re-render part of the website, not the complete website. There are a few students who actually ask me, okay, why Vue and similar frameworks exist? And this is a really important question because we have to understand why do we use those frameworks and what kind of problems such frameworks are solving. So in order to answer this question, we have to analyze how the normal website works. So not a single page application, how a normal website works. So let's check that out. When you are browsing the internet, your web browser is just sending a HTTP request to the server. And during that time, you as a user, you are just waiting and waiting for the response from the server. And during that time, you are seeing a blank page. So you can't actually interact with the website anymore because it's just blank page in the web browser. After some time, user or server will just send a response back and you will see the response in your web browser and you will see actually the page. And although there are like thousands, even millions of websites working this way, and there is nothing wrong with this way, we have to actually admit that we could find some problems here and we could make some improvements. So let's check those. There are a few problems with this approach. The first one is, and you have to admit, this is not the greatest user experience because during the time I'm waiting for the response from the server, I'm just seeing a blank page and I can't interact with the website anymore. So it would be much better that I can continue to work on the website until I get the response, and the website should refresh itself automatically. The server sends a lot of additional data and metadata. Well, the server sends not just part of the website, the server sends the complete website every time I start interacting with it. And because of that, there is a bit higher load on the server. So server is just sending the complete website every time. And that adds some higher load on the network as well. And this could be problematic for the mobile devices because this could eat up your mobile data. So somehow it will be much better if only part of the website is refreshed and not the complete website, like what's happening in the scenario that previously shown. So what could we do? Well, the engineers realized they have to develop something new, and they developed something which is called Ajax, or asynchronous JavaScript and XML. That means that you can use a JavaScript on your client side, so you can use a JavaScript code to send the HTTP request in the background. And during that time, you are not refreshing the website, you are just waiting for the response. And once the response comes back, you can then re-render just part of the website, not the complete website. That means you will write a bit more JavaScript code on the client side. But well, if that solves our problems, That's pretty cool. So let's check how this works. So imagine that you have a website that contains menu, left navigation, content, and latest news, and you want to refresh these latest news every 5 minutes. So you as a developer, you have to develop a small JavaScript file that will just send the HTTP request to the server. Once the server processes your request, the server will send you a response, and this JavaScript file will then just re-render this part of the website. And this works pretty cool, but imagine you have to control not only this part of the website, you have to control menu, content, left navigation, and all other parts of the website as well. So what you have to do, you have to write, let's say, hundreds of these small JavaScript files that will manage all these cases and all these parts of the website. And now when the requirements of the application are growing and growing, you have to write more and more of these JavaScript files. And you will eventually have some additional problems. Let's check those problems. First of all, you will have a lot of unstructured JavaScript code because you are generating lots and lots of these JavaScript files. And sometimes it's really hard to keep track of all these files because imagine that you are working in a team with 100 of people. Then imagine how many of these files you will have at the end of your project. And because there are a lot of developers working on the same code, sometimes you will have a lot of code duplication. And if you ever worked on a similar project like this one, where you have hundreds of these small JavaScript files, then it's really, really nightmare to debug all this code because sometimes one part of the website is controlled through multiple of these files, and then you have multiples of the handlers that are handling several events and so on and so on. So it's really, really hard to debug this. So the question is, are there any solutions, or is there any solution to these problems? Well, yes, there are solutions, or there is a solution to all these problems. They are called front-end frameworks. So front-end frameworks are just methodologically solving all these problems that we previously mentioned. I will name here just few of the front-end frameworks. Well, the most popular ones, it's an Angular framework developed by the Google, the React framework developed by the Facebook, and the Vue framework developed by Vue. So now that we learned what the Vue framework is, what the Vue ecosystem is, and when we generally understand why do we need the front-end frameworks, let's take a quick break before we continue talking about use cases of the Vue framework.